There's tell them I'm charging. It's hard to really come off face words. And look away when you show me. I'm trying not to treat you like an object, but I just wanna on your body. Yeah, at least I'm finally being honest with myself. At least I'm finally being honest with myself.
That's the beat. Okay. What's up? Audio okay? Let me know. I think it should be. I think the stream, I upped the resolution or the bitrate a little bit, so hopefully that doesn't make it slower than it should be. Audio okay? I know there's a delay, so I have to wait for somebody to answer. I'll just start by answering the first question, and then I'll notice somebody. Yes, it's good. Okay, perfect. So, Noman Hussein. He actually left his number, so I'll call him instead. But then let's take this one while I get the number up and everything. I want to... no, that was the one. Okay, Nadia. Alicia McKinn asks, in your opinion, would you say it's absolutely necessary to go study at a renowned filmmaking or art school in order to do well later on in your filmmaking career? Absolutely not, is the short answer. There's so many people that drop out of any school, like Steve Jobs dropped out, I guess Zuckerberg dropped out. They're not filmmakers, but I'm sure there's a ton of filmmakers that did the same. I think it's more important to have a vision and to have an idea of what you want to do, or at least you don't have to know exactly what you want to do, but you know that you don't want to do something. So for instance, you don't want to go the traditional route that everybody else does. Knowing that gives you an upper hand in terms of figuring your shit out and to become a unique filmmaker. So I think that's more important than going to a school that's renowned for, creating talent. What you do get in a school like that is contacts, and that's something that is probably one of the most important things in any business, is the contacts. So if you don't have a good network and all that, it can definitely be worthwhile going to a place like a film school to get that. But you could also get that by collaborating with people, or to assist people, or building a network it's something that everybody has to do. If you go out of film school without connections, then you probably not gained enough from going to film school. What you do get is friends that will go on and do things that you can collaborate with, and hopefully some of them will make it. When I went to film school, I don't think anybody actually made it, and I was probably, when I went to photography school, I was probably one of the most lazy people, according to my teacher, because I was more focused on doing what I wanted to do, and I wasn't so focused on doing the assignments. I just went out and did whatever, and I think that's a mentality that you have to have if you want to make it, because it's not it doesn't come down to following a script or following what people say to get to a successful filmmaking career. It's much more about deciding on a vision and sticking to that and not giving up before it happens, because you're gonna have tons of chances to leave film or to do something else, or to jump from project to project and never finish anything, and that's the most important thing. And going to school versus not going to school, it's also based upon you. Like, if you don't go to school, it's based on you knowing or having a passion that's big enough that you will do it anyways. Otherwise, I guess you're not gonna make it either way. If you don't have the passion and the will to be successful, you're not gonna be successful. And I think that's the important factor, whatever you do. If you choose film school or you don't choose film school, if you have the passion and the vision to do something, you're gonna do it either way. It's not gonna matter what people say, or who says no, or what connections you have. You're still gonna find a way. So I think that's the most important thing to get figured out somehow. Okay, so let me try to get Skype up. And then I also think going to school, it's actually a way to not have to take responsibility. And I think making it is all about responsibility. So even if it can seem lazy to not want to go to school and study, your parents can say so, that's actually the responsible thing to do, is not to go to school, because you have a vision that you want to stick to. Of course you can fail, but anybody can fail even going to school. So I'm not a big fan of schools. That has to do with them creating this false feeling of you feel like you have if you just get into this program, they promise you all shit that will make your successful career come to fruition. And it isn't like that. It's never like that. So it's much more important that you know that going into a school that they're not going to make or break your career. It's going to come down to you. And I think that false pretense is what I hate about universities, schools, whatever it is them lying to you and saying that if you just take this course, you're fine. It's still going to come down to you doing things. Yep. What? My screen is broke. Okay, now it works. Hello, is it Noman? It's Jonny.
Yeah.
Is it Noman?
Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, it's Naman speaking.
It's Jonny von Wallström, Creative North.
From where are you speaking?
Sweden, Creative North. What's your question for me?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was concerned that how can you like start making a living by doing photography, and how do you convince your family to like know that this is a viable thing to do?
Yeah.
That was my primary concern.
And what's their stance on it now? Like, where are they at? When you say you want to do filmmaking, what do they say?
Well, they are like, do you understand that this is a very complex business to be in, and it's very risky and stuff like that. So my family stands that way, that they want us very secure and like a very close-in future. But on the other hand, I don't like jobs and stuff, and I really want to do whatever I want to do with my life. Like photography and filmmaking is all I want to do.
Yeah, and are you fine with going against what they think, or where are you at with that then?
Yeah, pardon me, I did not get that. Our voice is coming off.
I mean, if you yourself, are you fine with going against their wishes?
Well, I'm not exactly. To be true, I want to convince them, but that if that's not a very probable thing, then it will be fine, because in the end, I think they'll be happy to see me happy.
Yeah, because I think that's what it comes down to, is like you explaining that, okay, so, you know, you have this passion for something, and if you have that, then that's the most important thing, I think, to follow that passion until you know, either fail or you succeed. But what usually happens is that you find some path within that. I mean, a lot of musicians, for instance, who was doing their music career, eventually some of them that didn't make it as artists, they find their way onto a label, or some way they work with music still, and they still think it's fun. So I think it's about convincing them that it can be much more.
Yeah, even though I would not be a very big or something, but still I can do something, and I will be happy in doing that.
Yeah, exactly, because everybody is not going to be, you know, Steven Spielberg or something like that, and I think that's what they probably need to understand, that you can do so much within film or whatever it is, that it's always better to find, you know, your place in photography then. That is, where do you see yourself then? What, do you want to do everything now, or where are you at?
I really want to do for starters, I want to make some films and do photography, get some gigs, and start making some money, because if I don't do that, then I think that will be a very concerning thing for my family and stuff, because they would be concerned that my guy is just sitting out and he's not doing anything. But I guess that later I want to rise to levels of people like Peter McKinnon and even bigger Tom Ford and people like that.
Yeah, but I think then, if you have that ambition to be, you know, international and all those things, I think, you know, you can always start locally to survive when it comes down to, for instance, producing photography for clients or whatever you choose. I mean, there's so many ways to go about photography. I'm sure a lot of photographers got started in, for instance, weddings, and then they continued to advertising, or they, you know, went into editorial, got assignments from magazines and that sort of thing. There's a lot of ways to do it, but I mean, it comes down to, as you say, finding a place that's, you know, you're financially secure enough to take chances, basically. Yeah.
Okay, so.
Yeah, but thanks then.
No, that's all.
All right, so take care.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, alright.
It was really helpful for me.
Alright, cool.
And really good talking to you.
Yeah, enjoy talking to you too. So, take care. Bye-bye. This phone. I can't... I don't know if you can see that. I can't push the buttons. Annoying. Okay, so I mean, in terms of making it as a photographer, I worked as a still photographer before I went into filmmaking, and I know that the biggest obstacles that are out there is often getting represented, or to, if you want to elevate to that bigger level, it's the same with photography and film when you do advertising or that sort of thing. A lot has to do with getting representation somehow, so getting repped by an agency or management or something like that, because then you will get bigger clients. The other way to do it is probably what, for instance, McKinnon is doing on his side, that building a YouTube brand that's big enough for him to get asked to do projects. I don't think he's on, the level of the big advertising photographers or anything. He's far away from that in terms of money and that sort of thing. But he's still super successful at whatever level he's doing his stuff at. But he also has other incomes, just like Chase Jarvis has incomes from all certain places, and then his photography elevates because he has a secured balance in his life. And I think to get to that stage where you get represented, it's where I'm at too with advertising, for instance. I've been represented for, I guess, this year maybe, and I want to get represented in more countries now next year. And what we do then is try to build a portfolio with a lot of work that can then be used to get the right meetings with the right people and then get represented internationally. And I think you have to do that as a photographer too if you want to go to that level. And if you know that you want to be on that level, working with the biggest brands, the biggest magazines, then you need to set a plan for getting there. And maybe the first step is to get like local work and that sort of thing, and then eventually you gradually build your portfolio and then you pitch to these people. But it's hard to do that without a really strong portfolio, so I wouldn't do it too early. I would focus on getting a strong portfolio, and when you get represented, nobody will want to represent you if you're not making money yet. So probably the right time to do it is when you make a lot of money. You don't need somebody to represent you, but it will make it easier to for you to organize, and it will make more bigger projects maybe come in. So it's not a way to go when you're starting out, but it's a goal if you want to do it long term, for instance. Okay, so let me see. Where was I? Here. Okay, when you shoot a documentary, this is Matt Chase is asking, when you shoot a documentary, are you primarily working as a one-man band, or do you have a crew? If it's the latter, what roles do you designate to your crew? Director, DP, sound, gaffer, PA. Usually, it can vary a lot depending on budgets. But usually, the biggest, the most important roles is a producer that's usually doing a lot of different things. It's an overarching role in our projects. So it's the pre-production, doing everything there, working with the production assistant to make sure that things go on smoothly in terms of planning, the pre-production meetings where you pretty much set what you're going to do on location, making all the schedules, all those things. And that's a role that follows through most of our projects. Or it's split up that we have one maybe more executive producer, and then we have one that is more of a production part of it, that's doing all the pre-production and then production, but then leaves the project. that's one of the most important things. Usually that's Andre that does that type of role. And then I usually direct and DP. And sometimes, most of the time, I do the sound also. And that's not something that I like to do, but sometimes I've been forced to do it so that we can do more travel days and all those things. We've had to prioritize, like, to get less people going, and that's been a way to do it. And sometimes we don't have sound at all because we only do, for instance, no audio recording. Everything is maybe visual, and then we do voiceover and sound design in the post-production. That's very common. And then gaffer also, always, if I can, I always have that. That's one of the key roles, especially since I DP and direct. I wouldn't be able to DP if I didn't have an assistant that does, everything in terms of setting up the lights and all those things. It would be too much to handle, and also have like client, people in front of the camera. It's a lot to do just doing two roles. Now DPing is something that I've done for so long that I don't have to, work and fight to understand what I'm doing. But there's always technical aspects of doing it. So, the Ronin might not work, or the sound is terrible in this location, so you need to come up with a different place to shoot visually because it didn't work. Or there's so much things to do. So trying to balancing director and DP, it's a fight every time, because I like it because I can keep the style and all those things. But it's also something that I'm maybe moving towards not doing long term. I might get a DP and just direct. And then of course production assistant, a couple depending on the stages. We have some that does the research phase or the pre-production. Then we have some during production. And then I guess afterwards, the post-production, we don't have much people left. We have an editor that helps. I often edit, but then we have like versions and we have all those things that is done by a different editor. Sometimes you use a separate editor when I can't edit. Usually I do the grading. Sometimes we use a post-production facility to do the grading. Often we do the sound mixing externally, which is basically I do the sound design when I edit, so I have a draft of the sound design, then I give it to the sound mixing facility, they make that look or sound even better, and then that kind of evolves into something that is crisp in the end. That's the ideal situation. Sometimes I sound mix too. So it depends on the budget, because I can do like a full production as a one-man band, but I don't want to. So as much as I can, I avoid it, because the project becomes much better if we can hire other people to do stuff. So it all depends on what type of project it is. For instance, if you saw a project on our Instagram, which is a Saab short documentary, it's like the 5th post, like 5 posts ago. There's this short doc. That was me and Andre only that did that, together with one from the agency that was going with us. So basically that was a short doc. I don't know, let me see how long it is. I actually don't know. This one. Anyway, go check it out. That's been just like 2 people working creatively on it from our part, and then the agency. The important thing to make that work on so few people is like planning and everything, because before that, this is on location, only 2 people. Before that, there's a casting person that does a lot of work that is different from us. Andre does the pre-production phase of it. I do the whole creative pitch and treatment phase of it, which is basically structuring everything. So all these shots that are in that video is pretty much storyboarded, and everything is pretty close to what we planned beforehand. And then there's a little bit leverage of making things on the fly, but there is always a solid pre-planned script for everything, even though it's documentary. And that's because it's necessarily to make it on few people and short amount of time. It's super important to have all that planned, but also to get your client to sign off and all that. Yeah. Okay, next question. Billy asks, "Hey Johnny, how did you go about developing your own color grading style? Sorry if you talked about this before. I feel like you have, but I can't seem to find it again." Yeah, I guess in a way I think because I've graded so much material, like I started grading, I guess, random stuff, but I think because I used to edit my own photographs, I got interested in, that whole phase of editing a photo. I wasn't so interested in, for instance, Photoshop. I learned it, I know it so deeply, just like I do with After Effects, but I don't like using them. I like to just shoot stuff and then edit, for instance, colors and moods and that sort of thing I love. But when it comes down to doing retouch and all that stuff, I try to stay away from it because I think it's just standing in the way of me finishing stuff. And I think in general it also affects, for instance, the realness of stuff. It's just like an overproduced music thing. Like you hear a record and you're just like, why didn't you just do a piano in your voice, or why didn't you just make it more simple? That's the thing that I like. I don't like over saturated looks, for instance, and I don't like over contrasty looks. I just like it to be this really, really subtle type of thing. Like the feeling that I'm going for is often the tiniest details. Like this is something that I learned also as a still photographer, working in a darkroom, that the shadow areas, like we talked so much and we developed so much around having coverage within the dark area, so having exposure there that is, details. And that's basically what I'm after, is getting a controlled image with from highlight to shadows being controlled, and these too noisy. And to have all the details be super controlled and focused around just like a feel of it not being so, like if you watch it, it's not gonna supposed to be, anything that makes you, oh, that's so graded, or that's so overly graded, or something like that. It's just supposed to be subtle, but then also visually strong, or it's gonna be a look that is a style, basically. That's what I've been going for. And I guess I started developing that as a still photographer because it's much easier. And then when I started shooting on DSLRs, I started working out a way to make my DSLRs look the same as my stills from the DSLRs. They never did because of dynamic range. But I always had that mission of like understanding how can I fake that look to make it look like film, because I had shot on film for so long. And then eventually, when there started to come out these filters, when you can see like the film look really clearly, you can see what makes film, like film stock, special. When you shoot analog cameras, you see, for instance, that it's a lot of the desaturated, it's a lot of the graininess, and it's a lot of the, for instance, colors, tints in some way that makes the film stock. And that's always what I've been interested in, because it creates this feeling of a look that's consistent. And I love the way that the Blackmagic cameras create a look out of the camera. A lot of the early Leica vlog stuff that I've done is shot on the Blackmagic cameras, and I really love that style that you can get out of the Blackmagic cameras. I don't think it's as easy to get it out of the C300 because it has a different look. It's a more saturated look where it has more colors, it looks more natural. But I kind of prefer the desaturated one, and you have to kind of recreate that with a different camera. And it's often evolving. Like, I have one look now, when I look back on stuff, there's a different, it's always like a fluid change in it, but I guess it's always similar. I don't know if that answers the question, but I guess that's the whole like mental process of coming to conclusion of what I like. But it's also looking at references of like what styles do you like. I like that matte black, and I don't like the highlights to be too bright. I think that comes down to me grading for a television in my mind because it has too much contrast. So I try to make it less contrast to compensate for all the idiots that has too much contrast on their TVs, or that has too much contrast on their displays, or whatever it is. And there are a lot of those. So if you look on a display that's, you know, more matte in terms of the contrast, you're probably gonna get an overly matte look from my stuff. But I try to find a middle ground because I don't want it to look like shit just because somebody dialed the contrast up to maximum. Or the saturation, for instance. And I think about all those things also practically, like where it's going to be displayed, and then that kind of goes into what I choose, what look I choose, because I want it to be as consistent as it can. Style-wise, I just like the way it looks. Like it's, I like the darker, more moody type of stuff, especially lighting. I like the moods to be darker than, you know, in general. It's nicer to have, this is lit pretty traditional with everything, but if you would just take away, now you wouldn't take away this one maybe, but let's just do it for the sake of it. Straight away you get more of a mood because you have light over here, and if you would just make that stronger, not have this traditional fill light or key light, I guess in my opinion this would be more of a fill light if I could choose, just because this look is more pleasing to me because it sets a mood. I guess that's more down to, you know, lighting, but it has to do, lighting has to do with grading, grading has to do with lighting. It comes down to those things. Yes. Okay, so where was I? Here we go. Dark Horse. Johnny, Merry Christmas and very best to you and your family. Thank you. Merry Christmas. It's so close. I'm actually going to be at my parents on, or my mom, on Sunday in Sandviken. And then I'm going to Bollnäs. Nobody from Bollnäs? Where my wife is from. And we're gonna have, snow, I hope. We have so little snow here, it's depressing. Okay, so cripples. Ever shot random shit without any story and have no idea what to do with it? Yeah, all the time. I just document. I mean, ever since I started, especially this, my mind is set on documenting everything I can first, and then I'll figure it out, you know, how to use it. Sometimes, of course, I have an idea for stuff. Like, for instance, for the tutorial stuff, I have to have an idea of what I'm shooting, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense and it would be so much material to edit. But in terms of, for instance, if we go to Faroe Islands like we did, we don't have, I mean, we have ideas of how we're going to use it, and we have, you know, a thought of how it's going to be implemented in different forms. Like maybe there will be a mood video, and maybe there will be an advertising themed video, and those things we have. But other than that, we just figure out that it's more interesting to watch documentary scenes with us. That material hasn't really come out like that yet. I think there's some in a mood film, something like that, but we always shoot it like it's gonna be, documentary going with us on a mission or going with us to a location or something like that. Just like the stuff we did with Mumbo, for instance, which is in Lake District in the UK. We knew that we wanted to create a series about being a YouTuber with him, talking to him and having a conversation. We didn't know anything else other than that we were going to go to the Lake District and we had a tent. That's all we knew. So then we, make the rest on the fly and figure it out. And I'm so used to that, so it kind of comes natural. But I think having a start and a finish line is what makes it easier. So having, we're going to the Lake District and we're going to hang out with Mumbo and then we're going to go back to Sweden. If you have that, you can have a story if you do interesting shit, I guess. But we also had YouTube as a theme, so we think of stuff like that. Then we recorded a conversation together, talking about, for instance, the being a YouTuber aspect of it. And then that was used to edit everything. So the stuff that we do, we don't plan to do much around. It's natural. If I go there and I meet a YouTuber and we talk about YouTube, that's natural. So it wasn't like it was a big hurdle to get that conversation going. But then we sat down in a controlled environment when we were eating and just, did a proper conversation interview thing that made up the series as like a talking structure. And then a follow-up question to that. Cripples ask, what about youth now wanting to already be professional at a young age instead of learning first? I mean, I only see that as a positive thing if you have some self-awareness. I mean, most people don't have self-awareness at that age, and most people, they dream maybe too big of what they can accomplish, but some do accomplish it. Look at Justin Bieber or other people that make it at really young ages. So it is possible, but for most it's not going to be possible. So they're going to find out either way that it's much harder than we thought it would be, and that will filter out a lot of people that think they want to do stuff straight away. But I know that most people that are YouTubers aren't making money. Most people don't know how to make money. That's something that they will have to figure out if they're going to move away from their moms. So I guess that's what it's going to come down to in the end. Do you want to stay with your mom for the rest of your life, or do you want to figure out what you're going to do? I think that's important to think about, even if you go out and you do all on intuition. That's what I've done my whole life. So I've done so much stuff that is stupid just because of it. But it's also made my path into what it is today, and less traditional than most of the people that go to film school in a traditional way, I think. Because they won't think of things in a different way because they are kind of educated to think in a certain way. I think especially if you look at the advertising industry, for instance, the way they work is super traditional, and they won't go away from that. Even if, most of the people are, under 25 are on YouTube and do things in a certain way. That doesn't mean that the advertising world will move that direction straight away. They will sooner or later, but it can take 10 to 15 years because they have so much routine on doing things in a certain way, and it's probably not going to come until a lot of the decision makers gets younger, or a lot of the stuff is so undeniable. For instance, people dying off all the young people making like not looking at TV, for instance. That makes it kind of obvious that they have to change. But I think those things have much more effect on like what will happen than you think. And people that are young has to understand that if you want to be professional, you have to understand how the professional world works. So even if it's nice to just go out and do stuff, you still have to figure out how you're going to make money, and you still have to figure out how the older and more experienced professionals do it to be able to get money somehow. Yeah. Okay, Dinan asks, I'm planning on making a short doc series, a visual portrait for artists, creatives who are in my age group, 17 to 20-ish, because we don't have a young creative community in India. So any tips for me? I think a good way of doing stuff like this is probably just like trying to think about like distribution in the face of getting the idea here. Because if you want to do visual portraits of artists and creatives, don't just think. It's easy to think about your friends, for instance, and then it's easy to also think about like people that are possible for you to get. But you should really think about like how can you get more known people that can make it more shareable and that can make stuff pop because you have the right people in it. That's really important, I think, because most people that just start these type of things, they think about it in a really artistic way, but they rarely think about it in like, how are people going to watch it? Is it going to be 200 or 5 people who are going to watch it, or 5 million? And you don't have to have 5 million, but I think that you have only stuff to gain by working in a way that tries to get the distribution right in the selection of the people. And that doesn't mean that you have to choose like stupid people that are, the people that you don't support just to get shared. No, but you have to think about how do you get people that are the right type of people, that has the right type of audience. It doesn't mean that they have to have social media following. It means that they have to have a name that triggers people to go watch their video. And there's also an aspect of it, like, what do you want to do with it? Do you want just people to see how good you are, or what's your ambition with it? Like, if you want to get work off it, who do you want to contact you because of it? What style do you want it to have? Do you want to get work off it? What style should it then have? Those things are really important to think about. And I think one way that these projects that are about artists and creatives, it's a really good way to get to know people and to network. So take the opportunity to kind of maybe make a pilot version of it that looks really good and that is really strong. And then try to get names off of that pilot and try to use this as a way to network instead of just seeing it as, a series about artists and creatives. Yeah. And look at Make, which is a good doc about artists and creatives. Okay. Austin Newman, just dropping in. Love the recent videos. Thank you. Dust Productions. I can help you shoot BTS, Johnny. If you haven't already, I know that I've gotten emails that I haven't answered yet. As I said, I'm ridiculous at emailing. But I will get to them eventually. And if you haven't, Dust Productions, send email or DM, whatever, so that we can know where you're at and maybe what you want to do. So, Assault asks, really want to know how did you actually get into filmmaking? Like random stuff? Actually, this is a funny thing. I lived in Jersey when I was... how old was I? 13, I think. And then I came back to Sweden. And obviously I spoke English pretty okay at that stage. So I got back to Sweden. I could speak Swedish because I'm Swedish, and I could speak English because I'd lived there. So then I get back to Sweden, and because I didn't want to learn German, because that's a really boring language. But anyway, so it's a really boring language to learn. So I was just like, I don't want to get, like, I had to read up on 1 year. And I was just like, no, never gonna happen. So then I was put in this help class for everybody that was like, it was only criminals and people that couldn't pretty much read or write English or Swedish. So fluent in Swedish and English, I was put in that class. Really amazing job, Sweden. Go. And like, it was totally mayhem. Like, it was the worst kind of, if you watched Gangsters in Paradise, that's pretty much what it was. And I mean, the class teacher and everything, it was insane, that whole thing. But anyway, they gave us a VHS camera. One of the assistants that worked in that class, he tried to get, everybody that couldn't sit still, like everybody had ADHD pretty much. So nobody could sit still, and then he came up with the idea that people would make films. So we went out and we made VHS films, and that's pretty much where it started for me to get like an interest in filmmaking. And that's some random shit. Like, I did never think that I would make films, but I think that kind of tailored an interest in films. And then, I had a lot of film interest, and I watched a lot of films, and I had that passion for films for a long time without thinking that I would make films. And then I studied a post-production program, which I thought was a graphic design program. When I applied for it, I wanted to do web design. But then I got in, and then apparently it was a lot of 3D modeling, and it was a lot of post-production, like After Effects and like Combustion. And I don't know, anybody remember Combustion? Combustion 2. And then that kind of tailored an interest in film. So I was studying this university program in digital post-production, and this was when most people that did digital did DV, so it was really shitty digital. I guess 28 Days Later was a film that came out during this time with the DVX 100. Amazing camera, love that camera. The most cinematic DV camera ever. Anyway, that kind of tailored an interest into filmmaking, so I stopped going to all, like, there was so much computer courses in like Unix and like programming, and I got really bored with that. So I threw all those courses out, and I only picked the film courses, like film music, film script writing, all those things. And then, so I never graduated that thing. Like, I should have graduated and got a bachelor's degree. I never did. I dropped out. But I picked those courses instead, and then I dropped out, and then I went to a photography course after that and thought I wanted to do photography, did photography for a while, and then I got back into filmmaking, and have been making that since. Oops, it jumped. Matt Chase, when shooting a documentary, what are the trade-offs of capturing audio with a boom versus hiding a lapel mic? What do you prefer? If I had a sound guy or woman that was on a boom, I would prefer having both lapel and a boom operator. That would be the ideal situation. But what I've come to as a conclusion now for making my own docs, I rarely have a sound person making my docs. I can have it on advertising stuff, but if we only look at when I make my own films, I usually use lapels on the people, and usually with electrosonics recorders. I don't use wireless because it's so unpredictable. And it's ruined so much of my stuff that I'm not gonna trust it again, ever. There's like a whole microphone from in Pearl of Africa, the whole scene on top of the mountain. The whole freaking microphone with Nelson is useless just because there is noise coming into it all the time. And that's why you should use headphones, because I didn't at that time. Even if I would have had headphones, I wouldn't have been able to solve the issue because there was interference. Because I realized it when I had shot for a while, and I realized that I can't solve this. It's too much. Like it's the wrong. What's it called? Like the signal system. It's the wrong frequency, so it wouldn't work. So then, that whole experience of not having his lapel has been an issue. So after that, I kind of developed my own way of doing it, and with my new dock, I shoot with two Sennheiser 416 microphones on the camera rig. That I can move them like this, however I want. So for instance, if you have a two-person shoot, one sitting over here, one sitting over here, and I want to have both of them. Like the mic, if I'm this close, as like we're sitting here by a table or whatever, I'm close enough to get good audio out of the 416 Sennheiser mics. But not if it's pointing in this direction. So I usually use two, and then I kind of point them in whatever direction I need them to be. And then I also have lapel mics on them, because that's always the best if I want to be free as an operator. If I want to go over there and I still want to have crisp audio over here, I need to have the lapels. And that kind of works for me, but for other people, I think they want to have the boom. I think that having a boom kind of affects your shots too. Like you're forced to shoot in a certain way. But if you have a good boom operator, they're really good at, moving out of the way of the camera. Yeah. Okay, SF asks, which Nordic country would you recommend to travel to? Norway. Go. Norway is the best country. It's a shitty country, I think, as a government. Shitty as hell. But because they have this baby America mentality, which it's not good long term for Norway, I think. But either way, it's the most beautiful country in Scandinavia by far, and it has everything you can imagine in terms of being outdoors. And yeah, I love Norway. I think they should get their shit together and not drill for oil everywhere, but that's a whole other question. Love your live streams, by the way. Yeah, thank you. They're getting better, I think, technically, because I actually gotta show you this. Now I'm actually dropping one bar, but this is kind of funny. So to get better audio, or to get better bandwidth, I've actually had to put up this antenna over here. Because the 4G wasn't good enough. So, it's getting better, I think. Okay. Good enough. Dust Production. Gick på gymnasiet Bollnäs. Bollnäs, that's where I'm going for Christmas. Okay, that wasn't the question. Where do we go? Here we go. Dave Explorer. Do you have advice on advertise and get your content out there and to get an audience from 0 subs? On YouTube, I guess. I think the easiest way is to upload frequently. It's kind of shitty in the beginning because it goes so slowly on YouTube. YouTube is not a fun place to be at if you are starting out. It takes so long to get to 1,000, for instance, subs. So the way we did it was to launch with like a web series as a kickoff type of thing. The dumb thing we did was to launch the Pearl of Africa web series on a different channel and then realized that we weren't gonna stick to that channel. So we had to change and build a new channel. But that's a whole other topic. I think that you should figure out where you want to be, but it's better to just start uploading and start building something. If I'd started uploading on this channel when I started using YouTube, which was, when it started, and I've had different channels a long time, going from like project to project, always a new channel for a new project, that's a really stupid way of doing things. You need to pick one and stick to it and build that one. I could have built this channel so much better if I would only have understood that from the beginning. So that's one thing. I think making content that is, I guess, strong for like news agencies or Reddit places to so that it works there to get shareable and to get noticed in those places. Because if you share it to Reddit and it gets upvoted, you can get a lot of views that will turn into subscribers, hopefully. You can also do collabs. I think it's kind of hard to do collabs at that stage. So I guess, what would you do? Like, it's so hard. I think the easy way is just to start uploading and start telling stories, because getting collabs is going to be really hard before you have a base of some sort. So once you have some people that are following you, it's much easier to get people interested in collabing. But then another way is to use the other social media channels, like Facebook, for instance, but YouTube doesn't really like Facebook, so it makes it kind of difficult. But I think you have to pretty much publish it at so many places that you can think of. But primarily it's about making strong content that is unique and trying to figuring that out. But mainly doing that and being consistent, I think, is basically what's going to make it happen. And if you can, of course, like uploading 7 times a week, it's going to be a sure way to succeed if you do it for long enough. Most people quit, and that's the whole issue, that you have to find a balance, like how many videos can you upload. If it's once a month, make your content to be once a month impactful then. Or if you can make it like once a week, which is the least I think you should do, then make it to be impactful once a week. But what you see on our channel, that's why we're going up to 5, for instance, a week. With every upload, like if we upload this today, every day it's gonna go down the subscriber rate, because YouTube promotes your video based on your latest upload. So once it's gone a week, it's pretty much 0 or maybe 10, something like that from that video. So what you need to think about is every upload is going to keep this subscriber rate up high for a long period of time. And it's undeniable that that's the only way to succeed on YouTube, pretty much, if you don't do the viral type of videos. But then also, one key factor to every channel that blows up is one viral video that kicks things off. You need 1 or more viral videos, because that's gonna make you grow on a faster pace. And then once that happens, you need to think about all the videos that are, for instance, let's say you have a grading video and it pops. Then you should make grading videos. As soon as you see that popping, you should make grading videos that then can be linked via the metadata and all those things, and the keywording and playlists and all that. so that they can be gathered together, so that once one pops, the other ones gets recommended, and your whole channel grows. That's the easy answer of how to do it. Then in reality, we all know that it's much more to it than that. So, Alyssa Sherry, can I just say you are really hot and I feel super attracted to you? Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really nice of you. I guess that wasn't a question, but you can say that. That's nice. Assault, what are your opinions on Ollie Mumbo Vlogs? I think Ollie is amazing talent. I wish he would upload much more on his filmmaking channel, Mumbo Vlogs, because he does so much of his gaming content. I'm not so into gaming anymore. I used to be really into gaming, but then I figured that took too much time away from me making films, so I stopped. But for Christmas, that's what I do. Mario Kart on Christmas Eve. Very important factor in having a successful Christmas. Okay, but then I guess he's gonna do a lot of stuff. He's super talented. I think he will go on to make more short films and that sort of thing in the future. He still has a base. Like his Mumbo Vlogs channel is really big in comparison to a lot of people, and he just, I don't know if he still does once a week. I think he had like a irregularity in his upload frequency for a while, and now I think he's back to once a week. But I think he's amazing guy. We had fun. If you want to check those videos out with Ollie, it's from the Lake District. How to become a YouTuber. Okay, Dark Horse. Oh no, this is not a question. Okay. Okay, so SFS, what's your live stream setup? Just your 720p webcam. No, it's actually the C300 Mark II. And then, I guess you can't see it. No, you can't see it. It's a, what's it called? Paradec. Let me check. Yeah, C300 Mark II, Sennheiser 416, and then it's a Paradec Cube 105 that does the encoding. So the encoder we usually use for client monitoring when we do ads. Usually we use that one to have a cable that goes to TV type of thing. But then when you own it, you might as well use it for live streaming because it's really expensive, and I wouldn't have bought it for live streaming only. But yeah, when you have stuff, you use them, hopefully. Okay, so last question. Cash Skyler, I don't know if that's right. I'm making videos with my phone and nobody can tell me if it's a phone, but I say it's from a phone, and when I can make these kind of videos from my phone, they just refuse to give me money. What do you want money for? I don't get what you're trying to sell. I'm making... I guess maybe stock sites or something like that. Like what it is usually. So for instance, stock sites, TV channels, everybody has a standard, for instance. So phones are never going to be a standard in terms of working professionally. It's always going to be a problem because of resolution. It's always going to be hard to sell that. Or it's almost going to be impossible to sell that. But, I mean, it's evolving. These are getting better and better. I never take pics with this one, barely, maybe once, twice a year. I usually have a separate camera because once I watch the pictures, I see that it's so much better. Like there's a crispness to it that is insane. And of course, if you watch a picture on a display like this, it might not be so visible. But you have to think about them watching it on a display or watching it on a big billboard or those type of things. And even if you say that it's, people can't see that it's a phone, I can see if things are HD or if they are 4K or if it's a red camera or an Alexa or if it's, a DSLR. And I can also see, because I'm so used to grading and hiding those things, I can also see like what the difference is in resolution and in dynamic range. It's getting harder and harder to see. For instance, the GH5, you can get away with so much more than you could with the DSLR before. Now that's a mirrorless, I know, but still same. And I think even though you might see it as an end result, people that are, for instance, at an agency or somebody that is buying, for instance, stock media, they really want, if they could and they wish, they want all stuff to be shot on Red or Alexa, because it has a resolution and a dynamic range and a lowest quality standard that is so high that they can use it with a lot of different stuff, because they're trying to match it to other stuff that is shot on those types of cameras. In like our world, it's easy to get away with the C300 Mark II, for instance, but we use it because we have audio capabilities. You can't do that on a Red because it has a fan that's too noisy, and an Alexa would work, but it's so expensive. So when you think that your material might be good enough on an iPhone, it's probably not in their context. And if you make an advertising project that is only camera based, you probably do that as a gimmick, or you do that as something to get, for instance, your way of working. If that's what you want to do, work with Samsung or iPhone, because they probably want that type of filmmaker. But you're going to be limited in terms of who you can work for, because a lot of people has maybe false pretenses, but they have a way of thinking about things that it's not going to be possible to remove their thought of Red or Alexa being the best. It's not going to happen. It's just like, all the people that thought the film was the only thing for years and years and years, and there's not going to come anything to compete with it. That's the same type of discussions. Like phones, eventually, maybe they will be a viable way of filming things. But still, today, it's so limited. It's so complicated to get the same shots with this camera than it is with my C300. And it's the same with the GH5, which is a really good camera. It's much harder to get as good picture out of that one than the C300 Mark II. And with an Alexa, even harder to compete with that. And it's just fact. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. If it is like mobile phones that you're strongly, wanting to work with forever and ever, or for now, you should go that route, and you should only do that and then market yourself as that. But you're going to have to understand that most people won't work with you because of that too. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just makes your world much smaller in terms of getting jobs or selling stuff. And with stock sites, or for instance Netflix has cameras that are rated as these cameras are the ones that we work with. We don't work with any other cameras. That is the C300 Mark II, I think, is the lowest on that list, the lowest price range on that list. They won't accept the C100, I think, for instance. And the reason they do that is because they want to distribute all their stuff in 4K, HDR even, to the whole world. They want to have that, in all their media library. That's what they want to have as the lowest standard, because they want to have that offering to everybody, because they want to be forward thinking that this is what it's going to be like in X amount of years. And that's the whole issue that you're facing, that people aren't thinking of today, they're thinking of tomorrow and like 10 years from now. It's the same with stock sites. They don't want to have lower quality, because when I go to stock sites, I get bummed out if I don't get like ProRes files in HD at least. Like, so if I can't get that, then I probably want to pick something else instead of that. And they think of those things too, because it has to match to the other stuff. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching today. There's some question we didn't get to. We're gonna save them and hopefully get to them next week. Let me just see, because there was some questions from next week that I didn't remember to answer. Let me see if there's something. How much planning goes into filming a mini doc? Not so much on the channel. I'm gonna answer these quickly. What's the best way to get financing for a film? I'm making a video on that one, so stay. Do you have something new to show, like a rough cut from the African series? I can actually get that, I guess. I don't know how, but I'm gonna figure that out, because I do have that. We have the whole series pretty much done. Okay, so that's it. So next week, tune in. Thank you for watching.